Okay, hello and welcome to another one of these fantastic events at Nobody Studios. This time we get a chance to speak to some of the fantastic people who've been involved in the studio from the earliest days, chances to actually get to understand different people who've been investors in the studio, crowdfunders of the studio, founders of the businesses. And these are great conversations that we'll continue to have throughout the course of the story of Nobody Studios, where you're going to get to meet some exceptional individuals to understand their story, what inspired them to become a nobody, and how they've been engaging in the studio. So today we actually have a fantastic guest and someone who's really come into the studio, had a huge impact already, and found us organically as well, which is always a really fun way to do this. So a huge welcome today to Rumi Contractor. Rumi, how you doing?
How are you, Barry? Good morning to you.
Yeah, I'm great and absolutely delighted to have you on the show. So,
My pleasure.
your story personally is fascinating. We're going to dig into a little bit of that. We'll talk a little bit about how you came across Nobody Studios, even in its first instance, and the impact you've already been having. But for folks who probably don't know about you or have just met you, like you've worked in phenomenal organizations, you've been senior leader in huge banking and financial services entities. You're a natural innovator. You're a martial artist and have opened many fantastic gyms around jiu-jitsu with Anderson Silva, probably one of the most famous people in the whole mixed martial arts scene. So you're not your average character that pops up. So tell us a little bit about your own background and maybe one of the key entrepreneurial experiences that you think set you up for what you've continued to do through your career.
Great. I think again, everyone has some amazing stories, as we have kind of talked about. I think when you kind of dig a little deeper, we all have some amazing thing that has happened in our lives and has led us to make some decisions that make things even better. And somebody asked me, yeah, but it's not true all the time, because you can take certain decisions that don't lead you to the right outcomes. And in my head, I think the outcomes may not be right, but the experiences that you get from it are definitely going to add value as to what you're going to do next. So I think my story is like so many others. I finished college, I graduated and went to work for a pretty well-known organization called Datamatics as a trainee programmer. Spent a couple of years with them right out of college. I knew very little, if anything, about computers at that time, but got trained. Put in those 18-hour days, and had some terrific people around me who mentored me, took the time to educate me. And I think that was something that has been imprinted on my soul, that you get back what you put into people, relationships, or anything that you do. It is not a very deep philosophy. You want something, you need to make some sacrifices. Um, and right after that, I moved to the Middle East, and I went and worked in Saudi. Worked in Dubai at a time when Dubai wasn't what Dubai is today. It was truly this amazing Middle Eastern frontier, where there were these amazing opportunities that were available to you. And one of the things I used to do was I started my own little gig, training other people who wanted to learn about computers. So I had my day job, but in the evenings I ran this classroom for teaching programming. And that gave me some extra, what I call confidence, in engaging with different people, because I would be talking to people who were, I was 22, 23 years old at that time. And I was talking to individuals who were senior people working in some big organizations as big leaders. But here I was engaging with them on something that they were curious to learn. And that was the second thing that got imprinted on my mind: curiosity. You're never too big to learn something new. So that was just something that kind of has stayed with me forever. And I was talking to a couple of friends a few weeks back that the schooling, your parents, of course, have a big say in what your personality is going to be and is, but it's the teachers that really mold it for you when you're in that first 16 years to first 21 years when you go to college, etc. And for me, I was lucky, like a lot of others in my time, who were exposed to these Jesuits who ran this school, Xavier's school that I went to for almost 11 years. And these Jesuits were some of the most interesting folks I've ever met, because these guys, they came all the way from Europe into Asia. They kind of left their families. They had that adventurous spirit in them. And then they knew more about the land that they were in than the people who were born in those lands. And then they brought this amazing passion to kind of talk to you about your own culture, about your own background, and do it in a way that made it interesting enough. So these are some of the lessons that I think kind of, or rather characteristics and personas that kind of formed in my head as I was growing up, and started heading out and started my first job,
Oh, I
started
love it.
in Dubai, etc.
Yeah, well, it's always fascinating, right, to hear, as you say, like what molds people on their journey. These ideas that you're describing, like creating new, somewhat uncomfortable experiences for yourselves to create opportunities to grow, whether it is you traveling, or, as you say, people that you were exposed to early in your life who had made that a life choice about how they were going to
Yep.
live. The curiosity aspect, right? Like, I think it's huge. Like, we constantly find this, in the studio too as well. Like, how curious people are really dictates the ability to find new information, contrary information, if you will, that actually often leads to some of the best innovations that I've seen so far that we've done. And then you mentioned this as well, and I think this is something we've already seen you even start to bring into the studio yourself, is mentorship, guidance, like experience sharing, encouragement for people to go down the uncomfortable path. These are, I think one of the most important things about a great studio is entrepreneurs are coming here
Yes.
for help, right? At the end of the day, to be around other people that can help guide them on the journey, right? Like, if they wanted to go alone, and there's no issue if someone chooses that path, like that's a different choice than coming into a studio where you're, one of the huge value propositions is that you have access to these other minds, other experiences, other insights, maybe domain knowledge that you don't have, to help you create something better together. And I think that there's a lot to be said about that, about the way we encourage it, the way we talk about it, and you've sort of exemplified that already, and even in just the time that you've been with us.
And I mean, that at the end of the day, it's sometimes people might think that I don't really need any help, but I can see that in the world that we are in today, where complexity grows by the day, global situations that take place are completely unheard of. I mean, the kind of changes that can hit you from the side, from the front, from the back are never going to be in your so-called plan as to how you're going to deliver something. So having that kind of safety net of others who can immediately step up, and they're not going to fix your operational issues, but they're going to give you something which is even more better, a look-see into their experience. So somebody always asks me, so what does an advisor do? and it's a very valid question, right? Because if somebody had come to me 20 years ago and said, listen, I want to be your advisor, I'd be like, get the heck out of here. I don't need any advising. You don't know my job. You don't know my business. How are you going to advise me? And the way I look at it today is, I'm never going to be able to tell somebody how to do their operational role. But what I can tell them is, if you were to hit point A in this journey, I have seen that. And I can tell you that you could try X, Y, and Z, but they may be insufficient for you to get out of the situation you're in. So why not try plan B or plan C or whatever it is? And I think it's just that conversation that allows a lot of people to find the answer themselves. It's almost like talking to yourself, but on the other hand, you kind of are echoing what that person might be thinking or wanted to think, but just didn't have the opportunity to have that debate or discussion. Where this doesn't work are those individuals who think they know it all. Now, in that situation, they're better off doing stuff on their own, because they're not going to listen to anyone's point of view. And I think in today's world, having points of view is great. You don't need to follow or take any of them, but at least you have surrounded yourself with data. Now figure out if that data gives you the insight that you require for your business.
Yeah, no, it's great. Like, and we already see, even hear people throwing comments out there, how glad they are to already have you in the studio and someone that they can call on. And, this is a great example, I think, as you describe, like, what is an advisor, and there's so many different ways people implement that on the spectrum, from, they'll sit back in the chair and,
Right.
like throw information nuggets at you that are
Or the
totally.
same three things, or talk about the same three things that they go from one company to another.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, I think, and maybe this is a characteristic, as you say, that has certainly attracted people to Nobody Studios, is folks that want to roll up their sleeves, that actually want to, dig the hole that needs to be dug, or really get, their hands dirty. I think is a huge part of it. So, you've obviously come across Nobody. Like, tell people a little bit, maybe your own story about how you first of all discovered the studio, and what your curiosity, I suppose, that led you to become, an investor through the crowdfunding, and now like a great contributor to the company. So can you share a little bit of that story for folks so they hear?
Sure. I think I've shared it with the only person I shared this is with Mark. And I'll tell you blow by blow how it happened. So I remember getting onto LinkedIn, and I see one of the guys that I really have a lot of time for, Daniel Bernard. And Danny had posted something about Nobody Studios. And the first thing that caught my eye was the branding. Nobody. Do you want to be a nobody? Now, that thing really, really caught my attention. And I just sat there and said, I want to be a nobody. And it's so weird, right? Because you live your whole life wanting to be somebody. And after you kind of think you achieved being somebody, you actually think, I want to be a nobody. and I kind of kept looking at this Nobody Studios, and I said, I have to figure out. So I kind of had a call set up with Danny, and we kind of talked about it. And he said, Rumi, you're going to love these guys. Go and talk to them. I'm going to introduce you to Mark, and then he's going to have a conversation with you. And lo and behold, I had a conversation with Mark, and it was a great conversation. Again, I could see that this is a guy who doesn't need to prove anything. He's done some stuff in his life, but there he is, wanting to kind of take that, set the stage up, and then bring people in and listen and grow and do things. And I said, if I'm going to invest, I want to talk. I don't want to be that silent investor that is going to sit in a corner and wait for that payout. I want to be engaged in doing something. And so we kind of discussed, how I can get involved, engaged. And I've been talking to one or two of the portfolio companies. And again, amazing individuals, the Edge brothers in UK. I love them. I think they have a fantastic product in ThoughtFormer. And I was in London 2 weeks ago, went and met them in person, even more engaged now that I know them face to face. So I think for me, it was Danny kind of throwing the bait at me, the Nobody logo itself, and the ethos around Nobody, being a nobody. It is a very subtle thing. You really need to park your ego at the front door when you come inside an engagement like this, where there are a lot of somebodies over here. But collectively, if we can park our egos, bring our knowledge and our experience, and do something amazing, Nobody equals a lot of somebodies.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of the most fun parts about the studio, I have to say, and certainly was one of the things that really struck me when I met Mark initially too, as well. Right, and it's one of these. It's almost a polarizing effect. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes we get these messages where people send us, "What do you mean nobody? I'm a somebody." You know, I've spent my whole life
To
trying to
me,
be a
that's the
somebody.
that's the differentiator, right? It,
Yeah,
it can either rub you the right way or the wrong way, right? And to me, the ones that rubs it the wrong way are never going to come. And for
right on.
those to whom it kind of just sounds brilliant, are going to be all over it.
Yeah, it's so true, you know. And again, I think these are representations of the culture we're trying to create, like people who have humility, who focus on the beginner's mind, as some people would say, right? This notion that while we have some people who've achieved amazing things, yourself included, you know, this natural ability to keep wanting to learn, to have the humility to actually say, right, how do I keep resetting myself, if you will, so I can continue to grow and learn. And as you said, the world that we're in at the moment, the innovations are arriving at a pace and a speed I think that we've never seen before. Like anyone who's playing around with tools like a chat gpt and then seeing that there's 5 different variants of that tool already starting to appear and shift and make
And
new
then you
tools,
know
new
that
digital
6 months
products.
down the line, there will be a complete different explosion somewhere about something else. And Chat GPT is going to be something that happened. You need to be thinking, 3 miles ahead of that. And I think that's the beauty for me at the studio. And then that is that guys like you, I think I love to I believe that we all need to decide that at which stage in our lives we feel comfortable in our own skin to say, I'm quite happy to sit and listen to a few people and contribute when I believe my contributions matter. And I have felt every time I've talked to someone, including you, uh, there is genuine interest. And the thing that I want to ensure we do more than just the amazing thought process is the execution. And I feel that with people like me, strategy is great, but we are like horses chomping on our bits to kind of get out there and start running the race. So I want to really be one of the forefront out there to kind of make shit happen, and help people with some of the heavy lifting, because collectively you can lift anything. Collectively we can solve anything. Collectively we can find somebody else who knows somebody else who can come in and bring in that thing that we think we need but don't have. So I think the problem solving capability and the ability to execute can exponentially put the studio where Mark has been thinking we can do something that nobody else has done. And to me, that's another challenge. It's like waving the red flag to the bull kind of analogy, where you really kind of want to make something that most others think cannot be done.
Yeah, no, it's super special, you know. And even right at the moment, we're in a very unique time in the studio. We've just finished this equity crowdfunding campaign, one of the first venture studios to ever offer
Yeah.
retail investors the opportunity to own early stage companies. And essentially, our stakeholders, as shareholders, even went from a couple of hundred people to now over 1,000 people in 100
Thousand, yeah.
days. You know, and it's very exciting. We have our first ever all hands this Monday, May 15, where we're literally going to have the opportunity to have 1,000 nobodies on a call, which is again
It's going to be
another one of these
amazing.
amazing sort of data points, if you will, along our journey about what seemed almost in an impossible vision many months, years ago, and yet here we are and continue to.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, most other studios don't give you the same opportunity as Nobody Studios does in terms of investment. When you put $100 in Nobody Studios, you're not punting it against one specific asset of the studios. You're punting it across the entire portfolio of Nobody Studios that exists today and will exist tomorrow. So I think that to me is an amazing opportunity for investors to kind of put their bet, but they're not betting on one horse. They're betting on all the horses that are going to be running in the race. and now the returns can be so much easier to garner than a binary, a hit or a miss.
Yeah, no, it's again, it's super fascinating and exciting. So for you as well now, right? Like you again discovered us through Daniel Bernard, the crowdfunding campaign. You invested in the company, but you haven't just stopped there. As again, you've continued to roll up your sleeves. You've spent time with the Thought Forma team, both the brothers based in London. You've all gone and had lunch together. Like this is a great example of just like get rolling up your sleeves and getting stuck in. So what have been some of the other insights that have sort of struck you now that you've become a nobody, you're sort of inside the studio and making things happen? What are some of the other things that are starting to strike you?
I think the other thing, of course, is how do we get the innovation side, the lab side, the ideation labs really going, so that we can come up with 20 new ideas in the coming 3 months. And I want to kind of get an exposure to that, as to how does that engine work, how does that sausage maker work, what comes in at this end, and how do we make those decisions that allows us to say, yeah, we're going to go and put our bets on A, B, and C. And how do we garner, and I'm assuming what Mark and you and everyone else is also trying to do through this all hands call on Monday, is to kind of accelerate those ideation side, so that we can start looking at what are the future chat GPTs, what are the future cloud implementations. I'm actually I just got onboarded on a as a non-executive director for a company out in Singapore. They are into cloud compliance, and I'm just as interested in figuring out how we are going to get them into the marketplace. And when I look at Nobody Studios, I see that as a fantastic opportunity for me to kind of connect dots from something I do within the studios to something I do outside the studios, and connect them. I was talking to another company out in UK this morning. They've got a pretty good setup for capital markets and how they do buy side consulting with technology and all. And they wanted me to kind of think about being an advisor to them. And my point was, love to do that, but let me also connect you in the future with some of the stuff that I'm doing in the studios and with this company in Singapore. And right away he said, oh, I'm going to be in Singapore 2 weeks from now. I'd love to meet somebody there. So I guess one of the things that I'm going to really do is what I enjoy doing, which is putting good people to talk to other good people, and make sure that no bad people come in my circumference or in my world through those kind of connections.
Yeah, no, it's great. And again, greatly exemplified even by how we've met you at Nobody Studios, yourself and Daniel, two fantastic individuals, now great members and contributors to Nobody Studios. So in closing, really, Remy, like looking forward, what are you most excited about? What are some of the things that are lighting you up ahead when you think about the future of tech or venture building, or just what's out
I think
there?
it's just going to be, I think the world is going through there are those two things that are happening. There's this craziness with the wars, and with complete breakdown of conversations across certain tribes, whether it is in the US or it is in Brazil or wherever. Uh, what I'm but what I look forward to is that no matter what anyone feels about AI and about technology, this is what is going to save us. I think technology is not something to be scared of. Technology is something that we have to embrace, and you can't go and put these golden handcuffs around stuff by saying, let's not do something on AI because it could be destructive. I think at the end of the day, humans have figured out that anything you make for good can also be used for bad. And there is always going to be that element in our lives. Happens within families, happens within countries. None of us are an island unto ourselves. And so you can't stop something in one place just because you're scared. the world is going to move forward, and humanity is always going to find the next best, easiest way to get through a day. If I can use technology to make something easier for me, heck, I'm going to use it. I'm not going to be stupid enough and say, well, I don't feel comfortable using this technology. So I feel that technology is going to move at an even faster clip. I think the world issues that people look at are truly what you hear in the news. But when I look at, from my 30, 40 years of having moved around the world's in a much better place today than it ever was 30, 40 years ago. So I think I have a positive outlook to things. With Nobody Studios, I think my big thing is delivery is glory. I want to get involved in the execution side. And the people that I've talked to, at least with ThoughtForma and a few others, fantastic. I think we have all the brain power. We just need to go out there and make shit happen.
Love it, Rumi. Well, I'm looking forward to doing that with you. Thanks for being on the show. I've no doubt we're going to have you back again
When
many
you're
times.
here, as I promised you, free admission to my gym, either here or in Brazil.
I can't wait. I just need to get my more practice in so I don't get served too hard on my first few sessions. I look forward to it.
All right.
Listen, thank you very much. And remember, nobody's, if you've been invested in the crowdfunding, look out for that invite, May 15. We're going to do our all hands in a couple of days. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you all very soon.